Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Chief Hanifan, I'm an operations chief in a kind of a rural community in McMinnville, Oregon, for a combination fire department. I have worked as a firefighter medic and kind of worked my way up through the ranks. Also, as Chief Alston mentioned, I'm the current president for Women in Fire, and I'm very excited to have such an awesome panel today.
Fantastic. Chief Summer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chief Deb Summer here. I'm an assistant deputy chief paramedic with the Chicago Fire Department, single role paramedic. And I've been with the department for 31 years. I'm still in operations, so we're still out in the field. It's an interesting platform. We'll see how this works. I'm very glad to have been invited to the program. I think we're going to get, you have the #1 and #2 EMS departments in the country here represented. We have about 800 paramedics, 80 actually in service ambulances, no BLS, all ALS. And we respond to about 400,000 to 500,000 calls a year. And we make the news quite frequently. So you all should be familiar with what's happening across the country and in Chicago as well. But thank you again for inviting me.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Chief Wolford.
Thanks, Chief. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us. What an honor to be with this panel. I've gotten the opportunity to work with a couple of you. And really, like, I mean, big shoes. We've got New York and Chicago. And I'm from Anne Arundel County, Maryland. That's where I'm the fire chief. We're pretty much the jurisdiction that runs all the way south of Annapolis up to the Baltimore City line. So combination department, I have about 1,500 employees. I certainly can't touch Deb's numbers with EMS responses. You know, for our call volume, we live around 85,000. I've been chief here for 18 months. And prior to this, I was the assistant chief in Spokane, Washington, working with that fire department and Fire Chief Brian Schaefer. And then prior to that, I was in Bozeman, Montana, working for that department and with Fire Chief Josh Waldo. So two great mentors that helped put me on this screen, I should say, and really taught me a lot. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Chief Wolford, you actually are going to lead into my first question. So I'll stay with you. What made you decide to be a firefighter and come into fire and emergency services?
I actually love that question because some days I feel like I didn't have a choice. I feel like it was just what my soul was telling me. You know, there's something about those of us that grew up in the fire service because our families were doing it. And I feel like, you know, every other firefighter I talked to that had that passion had it because there was a family member. I had that with my uncle and my cousin. My dad was law enforcement. So when I say I don't feel like I had a choice, I really just felt like I was following what I gravitated towards. And once you get in the field, I think you know right away when you get into recruit training, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Or you're going, oh my God, what did I do? And I loved every minute of it. You know, when I was a recruit, my mom said, you know, just send me an email once a week, tell me what you're doing. And lo and behold, she was obviously capturing my whole time. And when I, you know, got my first promotion, she provided me with all those emails she had printed. And I was like, I loved it from day one. So I think it is just a calling. And you really have to want to serve. That's what it comes down to.
Well, Chief Bonsignor, yourself?
Yeah, moms are cool, aren't they?
They're awesome.
Moms are super cool. So for me, it was a little different. I really had no intention or idea of getting into EMS. I am not a firefighter. I'm a paramedic, and we have we have a different bureau of EMS in New York City. So that's pretty much what I do. But when I was growing up, I had two incredibly strong women cross my path as a teenager. And for some strange reason, they just held on to me no matter how difficult it was and how challenging I made it for them. One was my pediatrician and one was an educator at my school. So these two women, like I said, for no other reason than, I guess luck on my behalf, took an interest in me and kept me moving. So right around the time I was about 19 or 20 years old, I was working in a retail industry. My goal was to become a doctor, just like my pediatrician, who was now at that point like a second mother to me. I wanted to go to med school, so that was my plan. But she says, it's time you get into medicine right now. You're going to go to EMT school. And I said, I don't really know what that is. And she says, you're going to be good at it. I mean, you could do that until, you go to school in the fall. And I said, okay, right. So I did it. I took the course. I did well in the course. I worked a private ambulance for a little while, and then the city called me. So I figured, all right, I'll take this for the summer, and then I'll go to school. I'll go to med school. So I figured it was just a summer job. That was nearly 30 years ago. It was the longest summer job of my life. I absolutely fell in love with this career. I mean, and once I had my feet planted, there was just no separating me from a future in this type of profession. So, like I said, one was a doctor and the other was an educator. And my goal for my entire career was to end up being the chief of EMS training. That's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I was an instructor for many, many years. I'm still an instructor and, paramedic. So I took medicine and I took education, the two things that I found out of these two women, and I meshed them together. And I actually ended up becoming the chief of EMS training, which I thought was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And then a couple of years later, they decided, I would be a good choice to actually run EMS. And I became the first woman to ever take this position as a 4-star chief in the FDNY. So, I have to thank the intervention of women that had no other reason than to help a stupid little kid from the Bronx make it in this world.
That's fantastic. You must have been reading all my questions because you're combining them. So we're gonna have to slow that New York minute thing down. Chief Summer.
I was just thinking, Lil, there's still time for you to go to med school.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Well, for me, I come from a fire family. We've had multiple family members serve on the Chicago Fire Department. And then I have relatives that served in the surrounding suburbs. For me, I was, when I left high school, when I was getting ready to graduate, I read an article in the Chicago Sun-Times about the female paramedics on the Chicago Fire Department. EMS only was born in 1976 here in the city of Chicago. So I decided I wasn't going to be able to do the sports medicine program because at that time there were no women athletic directors. So I decided to go to EMT school, and I caught the bug, and that was I just never looked back. My instructors from EMT school currently is my assistant deputy fire commissioner. She is my boss. And the woman that I had read the article about in regards to what it's like to be a female on the Chicago Fire Department, Roxanne Joya, who was Roxanne McCarthy at that time, I actually had the pleasure to work for her for many, many years. She's one of my mentors, a role model to look up to. I will say this, my family was not pleased when I decided to join CFD, particularly my uncles who were getting ready to retire. First off, you're a paramedic. Second off, you're a woman. And so what's the third strike? But I stuck it out. I have been with them for 31 years. Everything I have given EMS, it has given right back. I have had a phenomenal career. I've loved every minute of it. I never believed that I would even be wearing 2 bugles, let's 3. I did have a chief officer at one point tell me, you're going to sit behind this desk one day. And I laughed at him. I didn't think that would be possible, that there would be that opportunity for a woman. And that has really changed over the last number of years, which is a very positive trajectory for us, for the Chicago Fire Department. And again, like I said, as a kid wanting to be an athletic director and trying to find something to fill that need, to help people and be out there and be active, I don't know that I could ever go back to a 9-to-5 job and sit in an office. I'd rather just retire and find something else to do. But really, that path, it's a path that most people in Chicago do now take, and I see it across the country. Once you get that fire and EMS bug, and you'll know right away, like Chief Wolford said, you're standing there and they're screaming at you and you're sweating and you just can't find one more ounce, and you reach down deep and you get it and you finish it and you go home feeling accomplished every day.
Tremendous. Chief Hanifan.
Yes, thank you. I guess I didn't really have anyone to look up to, or I wasn't related to anyone in the fire service either, I guess what I'm trying to say there in a few words. So it wasn't necessarily a natural go-to. I was very interested in something that was giving back to the community. And, you know, I was very interested in maybe that being healthcare, but I also didn't want to work in an office and really wasn't interested in kind of that traditional setting. So when I was in high school, I did some ride-alongs with the fire department I work for now, and was more so initially interested in the EMS side, but actually really grew to be fond of the fire side of the house as well. And in the department I worked for at the time I was hired, you had to be both a paramedic and a firefighter. So it really was a package deal if that's where I wanted to be. And the rest is kind of history, I guess. It's definitely been a good experience. There weren't any other female officers in my early time until I was able to obtain that rank. So it certainly took me several years before I could envision myself even in the company officer role. And it wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. It just, I didn't have that vision that could be a potential. So once I got into that though, and really got involved with Women in Fire, my eyes became open to quite a few of the possibilities and potentials that could be out there as far as my own career path goes. So that's that.
Excellent. So Chief, I'm going to stay with you because Chief Bonsignor and Chief Summers talked about people that inspired them and that mentored them. Do you have such a person like that for you in the fire service?
I do. I have a couple, but I mentioned getting involved with Women in Fire, and I think honestly, Angie Hughes, who's the former president, was that person that really opened my eyes to the other potentials that could be out there. And she is just such a strong, solid person, and she we are very opposite in personality, and she's very outgoing, and she's kind of caused me to really push myself and kind of open my eyes to the world of the fire service in general, as well as introduced me to an organization where I have been able to find kind of mentoring moments, I suppose, from other women. And then my own chief in my organization, Chief Leifert, has been a mentor in the chief realm, I suppose, as far as kind of growing myself in that career path and that next step up above kind of that company officer role. So.
Excellent. Chief Wolford.
I knew you were coming. I was ready for you.
I'm ready. Come on. Bring it. You know, I'm originally from Jersey. Bring it.
So for me, role model and mentor are kind of the same. And I think for me, part of the reason I've found success in my career is I've kept a wide scope on things. And I haven't had just one or two that I really try and pay attention to. There's multiple. As I mentioned before, I had 2 fire chiefs in Bozeman and Spokane, very different fire chiefs, and I learned a tremendous amount from them, a lot just by observing, whether or not what they're actually doing is mentoring you, which they both were, but a lot by just observing different types of leadership and how they're dealing with that. I was incredibly lucky to bring in an assistant chief when I got here who was running my operations. And I said, yeah, I want you to come. I want you to work for us. He's been phenomenal. So what better way than to get one of my biggest mentors and advisors right there next to me and with me. So that's really been a phenomenal thing to have with me. His name is Larry Schultz, and he's done great things in the industry. And then some of it for me is what we talk about, like the grit of the job, right? I feel like everybody on this scene here and on this screen has been successful because they have just committed to doing the boring, mundane, awful tasks of completing school or writing a paper or being involved with the committee. And some of that is just having that good peer pressure of those around you saying, you know, hey, are you going to finish your master's? Hey, are you going to do this? And so some of that has been this leadership and this these roles that other people are playing that I'm just watching them and going, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And it's the right thing to do. So let me just do it, right? Let's just get it over with. And it kind of goes back to what Deb was saying on that recruit school day, when you're down there and you've got that one extra ounce to give because you know it's what you want to be doing. It's those really obscure moments where you find that mentoring from somebody you never even thought.
I could not have said it better. Excellent. All right, so let's get to the tough part. And I'm going to go to Chicago first and then to New York. So just get ready. What do you find? Let's talk about your personal or professional challenges. All right, your personal or your own challenges. And then I want you to tell me some challenges you see in our industry as it relates to your department. So Deb, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me personally, I think given that I've been in the service so long, I am growing impatient at the lack of change. And so coming from a large organization, you can get lost very easily. And it used to be the moniker, or, you know, the saying that if they can't put your name to your face, you've done very well in your career. And I kind of go against that. You know, you need to step forward to prove yourself, but to gain those experiences. And one of the challenges, particularly in a large organization, is you have these cliques and factions, and the power vacillates between them while you're out in the periphery, and you're trying to get through because you know you could do a great job. And it's the lack of opportunity that's been one of the challenges. So I've been very vocal about bringing people up who are not normally given those opportunities. I also, when we teach, we created a leadership institute type of training for all of our EMS professionals, because generally it was always done by the fireside. And there's always that divide in the larger departments from EMS and fire. You know, everybody's competing for dollars and for a seat at the table. But we created a leadership program for our EMS professionals as they start to come out from their candidacy and their company officer roles and then into chief officer roles. And what we've tried to push for them is to gain as much experience as possible. I've only joined outside of my organization since 2015, the IFC, you know, Women in Fire. So I've been given and granted wonderful opportunities to work on committees with Tricia, and then the IDEL program with the IFC, the National Association of EMS Educators. So you have to go create those opportunities. They're not going to come to you. You have to go find them. Your mentors, when they say little things to you, pay attention. They see value in you. Most leaders see future leaders before those leaders even know that they're going to get pegged for it. So my advice there would be, go ahead and pay attention to those whispers in your ear. And it's okay to be impatient. The fire service has taken a very long time to start changing its trajectory. It's like a battleship being turned around with no engines. So it's all hands on deck. And, you know, if you want help, you have to ask for it. And so for me, that biggest challenge is, number one, I'm getting impatient. So trying to be patient is a little bit of a different avenue that I'm having to learn to take. The other part of it is, if you don't use your voice, good, bad, or indifferent, you see something, you need to say something, someone will listen to you. May not be the person that you want to listen to you, but you'll plant that idea. And so that your voice, you have to use your power. I'm reminded of John Lewis, who we just lost. I saw a program on him the other day, and he made a very good point that while you may not have the power that leadership has, you still have power and you're obligated to use it and, blaze that path. It's not going to be comfortable, I can tell you that. No one likes to be challenged, particularly leadership, but if you do it in the right way and you have a progressive chief who's willing to listen to the boots on the ground, you're going to get some traction with your ideas. And those challenges then become more fuel for you to continue. It's that last ounce. Okay, I can go another 2 or 3 years. When you're at the end of your career, you keep looking for that sunset, but then something pops up. Oh, I got to take care of this. Just give me another year. We'll get this going. So that continued dedication is one of the challenges I see in EMS and fire, is that people tucker out. And just to keep going, keep surrounding yourself with those people who will continue to lift you up and help you stand up and achieve.
Solid. Chief Bonsignor.
I can't compare to Chief Summers. She did a great job with that one. And I agree that, it does get tiring. I could tell you, and I hope other people feel the same way, but, a 30-year career as a woman in a predominantly male environment leads you to have to overcome some challenges that maybe others wouldn't have to. And you have to be able to overcome your own insecurities, right? As a woman, you may be the only woman in a room full of very powerful and very skilled men. And you have to feel secure enough to be able to contribute to that room and not just fade away in the background. And that's something that I think probably, I wouldn't want to speak for my other people here, but I would imagine that we all have felt that at some point. And as you rise through the ranks, you go from, being somebody who's really getting things done to somebody who's getting blamed for pretty much everything, under the sun. So, you have to get really used to public criticism. And if you're not able to overcome that, that plays right into your own insecurities as to whether I belong here, right? Whether it's okay for me to be in this position with all of this responsibility. So it kind of plays head games with you growing up. So you have to be able to really embrace your role and look for those allies and look for those mentors and put yourself out there and be a little vulnerable and get your voice heard, like Chief Summers said, get your voice heard. And what I have found over the years is that in my own mind, I think people are not going to be accepting of me. But in reality, most people are. So I think, I have to give people the benefit of the doubt. And the other thing that I find to be always on my mind is that I am somebody else's possibility, right? There are young girls right now, even young guys, it's not just about girls, but there are young people who look at me and say, hey, if she could get there, so can I. And that is a heavy responsibility that I take very, very seriously. And I recognize every single moment of the day that I will influence and impact somebody else's world. And I'd like that to be in a positive way. So, so it keeps me in check. And it's not always easy, right? Because sometimes we want to fall back on our instinct, and you have to remember that, you represent a bigger picture now once you're in a higher rank, and that there is some little kid that was going to go to med school and came here for a summer and now sees the chief of EMS in one of the largest cities in the most recognized fire department is a woman, and they see that as their own possibility. So I take that responsibility very, very seriously. But it is challenging. It's challenging to push past your own, is it okay, or am I good enough? And I think most women feel that at some point, but the answer is yes, it's okay. And you're good.
Is.
Right? And you're good enough, and you're smart enough, and you're deserving of it, and you have something important to say. So you should say it.
When I couldn't have said it any better, ladies, and chiefs, because you also, when I coach folks, I tell them, you're always going to have doubts. It's a human condition. But you can take the doubt and say, yes, and I doubt, and take but out of the conversation. Yes, it's challenging, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do. And I can see it in your stories. I can hear it in your voices that in spite of doubt, you still made the decision. And it goes back to what Deb said earlier about that last ounce, getting that second wind, having someone whisper in your ear. And so I'm going to jump over to Chief Hanifan, your challenges and the challenges you see for our industry.
My challenges. Well, I think I don't want to echo too much on what Chief Bonsignor said, but that definitely was a challenge for me in overcoming. I think the imposter syndrome is something that we talk about at times, and being able to envision myself as actually belonging. And thankfully, that's something that I've been able to overcome, and mostly be able to overcome the fact of, people's judgments really aren't what they might seem. People do expect you to hold them accountable. And, in fact, the workplace goes a lot smoother if you do hold that accountability. But I think every so often you still kind of creeps up a little bit of, shoot, even right now, on with two chiefs from a couple of the greatest departments. Trish is a freaking rock star, and Chief Alston, you're all just wonderful people, and it's an honor to be able to be in some of these circles, and to know that you do have a place at the table. As far as the industry goes, I think we're in just such an unprecedented time with COVID and so many unknowns about how that's going to continue on and continue to impact our industry, whether it's economically or exposure-wise. A lot of organizations are struggling to figure out how they're going to keep resources being sent out, and are trying to sort what it looks like if someone becomes sick. Or a whole crew becomes sick. And there's just a lot of unknowns with that right now. Certainly civil unrest with that as well is an issue. I don't personally have a lot of pressure from that. I'm in a rural community. I know that it impacts the fire service though. And I think that it's just a really heavy time right now. And I think we're all kind of trying to stay afloat in a sense and keep pushing forward.
Thank you. Chief Wolford.
I love it.
And then I'm going to put a twist on it, so get ready.
Okay, well, I love this question. When we talk about challenges, I think first and foremost, this is probably the perfect example of me just genuinely being appreciative of the women like Deb and Lil. I mean, you guys are talking about 30 plus years in the fire service, and Amy and I, we can see the path in the grass, right? You've worn down the path in the grass and we see where it's going. We are so excited that somebody finally made a path, and we get to go down it. I think our job is let's clear the grass. Let's lay some beautiful pavers. Let's widen the road a little bit. So everything that you have done, I feel like even just in this small little forum, it's working. I don't feel I would have the opportunity to sit in this fire chief position if you all wouldn't have pressed and pressed and pressed. And Deb, I feel the same impatience sometimes now that I am in this role. But what I can say is it's working. I mean, we're like turtles and peanut butter working, but it's working, right? We're getting there. So, a thank you to those that have blazed the trail, because we see it. Sometimes it's not very clear, but we see it. When we talk about challenges, I'm just like any other fire chief, male or female. My challenges are apparatus, staffing, facility maintenance. I think you can't not address those things, even though then we talk about the challenges of what it means to be a female in this industry or a female leading a department. Those challenges just maybe alter the way you achieve and maybe make successful the challenges of apparatus and of staffing and the trust of your people to get those things done. I would say the number one challenge as a female in this industry is knowing yourself inside and out, and how you react. Our ability for people to understand why and how we react to things immediately puts us in little boxes and categories. And so knowing situations that you're going to be put in as the only woman in a room, which Lil, I couldn't agree more. I've had more instances of being the only female in the room on numerous accounts. You have to know yourself so well so you have the confidence to handle yourselves when you're making these multi-million-dollar decisions. And more importantly, when you're making decisions that affect people, your members or the community. So I would say that the biggest thing is us as women leaders figuring out how to give that confidence and how to make younger members trust their judgment. Again, whether they're male or female, trust your judgment because you know who you are and you can really trust how you're going to react in a situation. And then I always like to add in a little piece about fit. When you work at this level, there's nothing about any of us that is not qualified. There are so many people that are qualified. A lot of it does come down to fit. And again, that goes back to knowing yourself. Is somebody interviewing you for the fit or are you interviewing them? And that is a tremendous challenge for anybody young in the industry, but I think female in a male dominated industry, to be able to say, I am confident in who I am and my capabilities, and I know I fit this role. And that you would even come out and say, I think I'm going to do great at this and I want this position, so I'm going to go for it. But it's really hard to do unless you have a lot of time in and a lot of experiences or the rank or, so for me, that would be a big challenge for a lot of us to face in the industry is knowing yourself well and how you react.
Fantastic. Chief, you touched on a number of things. And so here's the twist.
Give it to me.
You spoke about the younger generation coming in behind some trailblazers. We know as chiefs that we deal with our officers, our teams, our rank and file. There's a new generation of firefighters that do not conform to the norms of what I've been in this business now 35, expect of firefighters, both not only in their training, their education, their response, even their social demeanor with each other. How do you see us bridging that gap, and where do you see the next generation, the next generational challenges?
So first and foremost for me, bridging the gap, and one of the most important things that I think I can do is listen. They have a great deal of knowledge, and whether we're talking about Generation Z or Generation Y, and what that kind of means, for our recruit classes, we're probably getting the 18-year-olds, which is a new generation, but we're still getting the 23, 24-year-olds, which is still part of that millennial generation. And they are supposed to be very different, which I think is great. So listening, because I'm always curious about their why. I'm curious of why they come to some of the decisions and why they do what they do. Amy actually touched on a piece of it when she spoke earlier about accountability, and how that structure of accountability within your system is actually part of what keeps it running smoothly. And so it's like any other firefighter, no matter who they are as a person, there are some clear expectations in running an organization, and making that happen. What I love from the next generations is, as I get older and I get more time in, I want us to stay relevant and moving forward. So I go back to the listening piece, and really trying to take that in and see why they think we should be doing this different. But as we all know, there's a time and a place for that. So that's part of that structure piece.
It's excellent, because everyone talked about the love of the job. We talked about how you came to the profession, but I also heard the words of impatience and how long we wait for things to change or to get better. And what I found about the new generation, their principal questions are always why and when. And so if we've been in this industry for a specific period of time and things don't change fast enough for us, to our satisfaction, how frustrating it must be for them. And I expect so many great things from the folks that are coming through those doors now because of the access to information that they have now. and the curiosity that they have. But I also know that part of it is they don't look at the career in terms of where we were, because I'll give you an example. They'll turn down overtime because their principal thing is, I want time. I want time to be me. I want time to live my life. But to get to those higher ranks, each of you on this call understands very clearly what sacrifice is and time. And it doesn't mean that they're not dedicated, but who's going to be replacing us in the future? Chief Summer, who's going to be replacing you in the future?
Well, I hope some of the company officers that I have mentored over the years, and I see that they're starting to get there. They're moving up in their ranks. The study groups that I went endlessly to for 2.5 years to prepare them for their next promotional exams. I came on my off days to help them. And I think you bring up a good point, Tricia, when we say we need to listen to them. I think we serve them better by listening to them, but also giving them that leadership skill. They need to listen as well. And part of listening is that history. You know, you ask, what is your why? Chief Alston, you say they always want to know why. Well, if we don't give them the history and explain it, let's just say risk management. Well, yes, you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle and you can drive anywhere, but that doesn't mean you drive into the swampy sand at the lakefront because you wanted to go drive on the bike path. Now it costs us this many thousands of dollars. So I'm trying to create those well-rounded and balanced individuals that can listen, that can make a decision. You have to make a decision. May not always be the best decision, but we give them the tools to train that. So the people I hope that will replace me are immediately my chief officers. I have phenomenal chief officers under my command that really have stepped up to learn their trade and their craft and find mentors outside of just our little circle. So I think that's great. But as I speak to the candidates, they giggle and laugh when I tell them, one of these days, you all are going to be wearing these bugles and this white shirt. They're like, nah, I don't want that. I want to just be a paramedic and stay on the street and hang out in the firehouse. Somehow we have to be able to ignite that passion in them to take over those leadership roles. A ship always has to have a captain. If it doesn't, it just flounders. And you see that in organizations all over the world, not just in the fire service. So my hope is I see a number of my people that would be able to step up and fill my shoes in the event I retire or something happened. I know I prepared them to be able to step up in that position.
Thank you so much for that. Chief Bonsignor, what does leadership look like to you?
Well, that's a great question. And I could probably go on for a long time about that, but I
Well,
will
don't
tell
do
you.
that. We've got 20 minutes.
I said I could.
kidding.
I didn't say I would.
I'm kidding.
But you know, one of the things that we say around here, like EMS, you know, I tell you, I love EMS as much as I did the first day I walked in this place. And for us as a leadership team, EMS to us means elevate, motivate, and support. And leadership is about elevating others, motivating people to do what's right and to want more and to be the change, and support them in their efforts to do that. You know, our generations, when I came on, you know, almost 30 years ago, I'm sure the older people that were here felt we weren't conforming either. You know, it takes a little while for you to get your shoes, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about the younger people coming in, but I would say that we have to lead them in a way that engages them, right? So we try to teach them under our own terms, and they don't learn that way anymore, right? There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of distraction, there's a lot of audio visual, there's a lot of other things that happen. They're very hands-on, they're, you know, and if we try to bring them to a whiteboard and sit there and talk about how to be leaders or how to teach them how to do the things we want them to do, we may not be engaging them in a way that is conducive to their learning, right? So I think they're going to bring a lot to the table. And I think we're at a pivot point where, you know, the leadership of today is going to look very different from the leadership, you know, 10 years from now. But I do believe that we have to stay within that frame of elevate, motivate, and support, and help people unlock their own potential. You know, we've all engaged in careers. We've made careers out of other people's tragedy. So, you know, so we can't forget that that takes a toll on people as well, particularly people who are coming up in the ranks. You have to ensure that they know how to cope and handle some of those things. But, you know, EMS, do the EMS way, elevate, motivate, support.
Fantastic.
See,
Chief
that
Hanif-
wasn't 20 minutes. See,
It wasn't.
not 20 minutes.
Right on time. Chief Hanifan, what does leadership look like to you?
I think it really is all about selflessness. So recognizing that it really is about, especially in the fire service industry, it really is about the team and the community we serve, and really constantly being willing to reevaluate that. I think that as a leader that we need to be willing to accept feedback and to, you know, oftentimes, as a few others have said, just listen and take it in. And really sit on, you know, whatever feedback it is that's given, and evaluate, you know, how I can either change the situation or change myself, or, you know, maybe change the dynamic of the team. And I would wholeheartedly agree that it is about looking for those opportunities to motivate others, to mentor others. There are so many educational opportunities out there, and really just working with your members of your organization or your team to identify opportunities that fit well for them and that will really help them to grow themselves. If you don't have that engagement and that motivation amongst your members, you really do kind of start to lose their interest a bit. So.
Thank you. Chief Wolford, what does leadership look like to you?
I mean, look at the screen. That's it, right? That's doing it. You know, for me, leadership goes back to a lot of hard work. And I have found that if you're not willing to put in the work, then you're probably not cut out for the position. Because the work that you do in a leadership role is, majority of it is not fancy. It's not glamorous. It's done early morning or late at night. And there is no recognition that goes with it. And if you like that kind of just digging in and doing stuff because it makes people feel good, and it might be hours and hours of work and it makes one person feel good and you feel rewarded by that, then for me, that's what leadership looks like. When I talk to my new recruits, you know, I tell them, because they are that younger generation, and they want the why and they want it now. I say, you can have it all. You might not be able to have it all in the same moment of when you want all of it. You know, having it all, whatever your all is, doesn't mean instant gratification. It means focusing and working towards it. So, you know, for me, leadership looks like hard work. It looks like just kind of diving in and doing the work, all while keeping your head on a swivel, right? Because you got to be watching all those mentors around you. Like, I'm doing this, but we don't have the luxury of just doing one thing at a time. So, you know, what's this chief doing over here? What's this person doing over here? And still gathering information and, you know, collecting things along the way.
Fantastic. Chief Summer, we're going to end the question with you, and then I noticed that we're getting questions in the chat panel. We're inside of 15 minutes now. What does leadership look like to you?
Leadership, in my opinion, really is, you've got to make yourself vulnerable. Leaders do need to show that they can get down on the ground with the people that work for them. They need to be available. You know, you have to have that open door policy. And, you know, a commissioner, a 5 bugle chief, for some people, it's a little scary to approach them. So you have to make yourself a little bit approachable. But we talked about sacrifice earlier. there's a lot of sacrifice involved in leadership. I don't think people on the front lines realize the sacrifice that happens and goes on behind the scene. Oh, you know, you're just a desk jockey. You're doing this, you're sitting inside all day in cool air conditioning. You have no idea what's going on. And I think that getting out there, being next to your people, motivating them, don't be afraid. Don't ever ask somebody to do something you yourself wouldn't do. And that leadership by example really, really does resonate very well with the troops in the field. But as an organization, our biggest asset is our people, and they need to hear that, and they need to know that someone is there for them. However we achieve that goal, whether it's through, you know, we're learning as well with this younger generation on how to communicate. We used to pick up a phone like you did. You called Chief Bonjour, you know, ask her how to say her last name when you called Lil. That doesn't happen anymore. They text, and I hate texting, but you have to learn to do it. And FaceTime and all this other stuff. I don't even know how many apps I have on my phone that I probably don't even use. But I get the information to me, and I have, as a leader, I need to learn how to communicate with them in an unusual fashion so that I don't lose touch with my people. I call them on their off days. I check on them. But you also have to make the hard decisions sometimes, and they're not popular decisions always. You're right, Chief Alston. You're going to get criticized, and you have to toughen up a little bit. You have decisions to make. But I think that as we grow as a profession and the newer generation comes in, if we pass along our history, but give them the reasons why we do what they do, support them in their endeavors if they want to try something completely different, you know, that's fine. Encourage them to join organizations and make that possible for them. Don't just say, go do it. Help them get there, help them achieve that. And so I think leadership is going to be different in about 10 years. We'll have cycled through, and we'll see a new role coming up. And I think the important part for us as current leaders is we're going to set that trajectory. So if those issues that are important to us, we still need to make sure that our people are taken care of. And you can't teach that in a classroom. That is done by actually being seen as a leader out in the field. Get out there, show yourself, show your pride in your people. And, you know, when you have to make the hard decision, you have to make it, but at least, you know, make that decision and explain to them why, as long as they're still there and they're still important.
Much appreciated. We are 10 minutes to closing time because I believe we're going to be an hour. I don't know if we're going to go extended, but what I'd like to do, there have been folks who have been very patient, congratulating the panel. Michael Kraus, thank you so much. Shannon says, this is all good. Thank you, Chiefs. But Tiana Bykowski has a question, and anyone can field this. Operations is a young man's game. After leaving operations because of starting a family, how do I get into a leadership position that is less about strength, more about knowledge, without doing the 25 years riding the right seat to gain credibility?
Well, my daughter is 35 now, so I went through that back early in my career, trying to find that path. EMS and fire, it's really not that different. I mean, there's still physical aspects of the job that you have to have. It's difficult. You do have to find a good mentor, and you do have to make those sacrifices. It's not easy, but nothing of value comes without a struggle. And you have to put in the time and the effort to do that. How you do that, maybe you look for organizations such as Women in Fire or something like that, and reach out and find those chiefs. There's not one of us here on this panel that would not take a phone call from somebody from the group. I talked to Terrytown, is that it? Up just north. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into a volunteer firefighter at the train station coming back from a relative's birthday party. I'm from Chicago. My wife is from New York. So we went up there and we went into the firehouse, and this young lady, I'm still conversing with her nonstop via email. So be approachable for your people, but as Tina had asked, you have to go out and look for those opportunities and those mentors. Pick up the phone. There's somebody that can help you.
I think the other thing too is within the organization, I know for my folks that do want to come out of the field, taking positions, these would be, day work, desk positions, whatever you want to call them, in training, in logistics, understanding that your role is always to support operations. And those folks, the fire marshal's office, they have such a good relations with the officers in the field, because those officers will call them directly for needs like, hey, I want to set up this training for my crew, or hey, we've got this new building going up in our area. So understanding that your role in those staff positions is to support operations, you will then gain the respect of those officers, captains, lieutenants, and battalion chiefs, because they see you as the right hand to their left. They know they're being successful as an officer and in this shining light to their crews, because the staff person is helping the operational officer get what they need. So I think that almost overexposure of that support relationship, and when you get yourself in that role, reaching out to those officers to say, hey, I'm the new training captain, I'm the new logistics chief. If you need something and you're not getting it, you call me. Right there is that bond of, man, look at the support I'm getting. Look who's trying to help me be successful operationally, and you will earn the respect of those operational folks immediately, because they know you have their back. And that's all any of us really want in the job, is to feel supported.
I think to get in that door, if you're trying to find an entrance into that door, you have to show what value you have, right? Like, what are you bringing to the table? Why would I want you in an inside position, right? So if you can bring something to the table that is of value to the organization, then you will likely have somebody who would want to pull you in to, capitalize upon what you're bringing. So I think you have to put yourself out there and say, look, I know I'm in operations. I'd like to be in an inside position. I'm really good at developing training plans. I'm really good at Excel. I'm really good at, wherever the need is. I think you have to know your own strength and sell your strength, because they're not going to knock on your door and ask you to come in. You're going to have to knock on a door and, sell them the reason why you should be in.
Tremendous. Now, we're getting questions in the Q&A section, and we're also getting them in the chat. So I'm using the chat for questions now, and we're trying to attempt to write the answers on the Q&A, because one of the Q&A, actually the question was, it's very difficult finding mentorship in moving up the ranks, and finding and having to find someone who can mentor you. So my suggestion was attending conferences in the past before COVID was a great way to network. However, joining organizations like Women in Fire and getting active is another way to not only find mentors and have them find you as a mentee. So I'm not mansplaining. I just trying to get it all done within the 4 minutes we have left. If that's okay, if that's a good answer from the panel, is that good?
That's a great.
I'll hit send. Good.
We have a mentoring program as well with Women in Fire. So for our members, look it up. I won't get too into it since we're limited, but.
Excellent. Brian Schaefer says, yeah, you're all amazing and have improved the profession incredibly. Thank you for sharing today. A question from Michael Kraus. As a union leader, it just jumped up again. As a union leader, what can we do to assist our female firefighters and EMS personnel navigating through their career, through their career in the fire service? What other work environment issues should we be focusing on for our female members? Health, welfare, PPE, reproductive cancer coverage. There's a whole lot there, Michael.
I'll do a really quick one on it. My first off, as a union leader, you're amazing for thinking of that. So that's a great step right there. That's fantastic. The second piece is talk to them. As a union leader, talk to your female members, ask them where they don't feel supported and where they feel like they need more. Because one of the things I never want an administration or my administration to waste time on is fixing something that isn't a problem. We have too many other problems to fix. So talk to them and listen to what their needs are. And then I will say probably one of the biggest things that we have tackled besides the recruitment and our want and our need for other females to promote is clothing and clothing, gear, that type of thing. We've really spent much needed time on that. So making sure people feel comfortable in their work environment for other reasons that might be completely unexplainable to what the fire service looked like 20, 30 years ago. When it comes down to it, if you think a t-shirt doesn't matter, I would disagree. I think a t-shirt does matter. And if you say, well, I'm a chief and that's not worth my time, maybe that's not the right place for you to be, because sometimes the little things in their 24-hour shift is what matters the most. And as the white shirt in the air-conditioned building, it is our job to make sure we remember that. So good job on that union. I hope they really are as supportive as they want to be. So listen to those women in your department.
Sorry, I'm going to take another one in the Q&A section. This is from Ava. How do you overcome the fear of failure on the fire scene? I feel like we as females have to prove ourselves. I'm shy and get very easily frustrated. Plus, I don't want to look like I'm complaining. Also, how do you handle PTSD when you are the only female in your department? Now, I'm going to give that to one person to answer. And Ava, if I will share some contact information with you, I actually wrote something on Hope for the Helpful, and it deals with PTSD and stress. I'd be more than happy to send you a copy of that. So I'll talk to you offline, but I would like one of our women chiefs to please answer that.
I think as far as the fireground confidence goes, that honestly, it just is going to take a lot of practice, and it's finding maybe one other advocate or a couple other advocates who are willing to get out there with you and put in the time in training and just get to a point where you are so confident with those fireground skills that you're not going to worry about failure and what that looks like. We're all going to have moments where we mess up. It's just making sure that that's not a predominant amount of the time, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Agreed. We are at the top of the hour. Are we going to continue, President? Because there's some wonderful questions there.
If we have one or two more questions, I'm fine with that if everyone else is.
All right. Lori, and I'm going to try and combine these actually. So Lori says, you're all strong and incredible and passionate leaders. Wow. What formal mentoring commitments have you done to support those women you envision following you? And I'm going to jump down to our last part. What supports should our organizations and associations provide to match mentors with mentees?
Yeah, I could talk just a little bit about that. We have in the fire department, we have the luxury of having some resources that maybe other places don't have. So we do have a diversity and inclusion department who, really does provide a lot of services and resources for our women coming up. As far as me personally, I am very serious about bringing other females up and men. It's not just about the females, but certainly in this type of profession, we need women to come all the way up into the high ranks. We see that they come in strong at the entry level, and then they tend to, plateau right around middle management. They don't move up into the higher ranks, and there are lots of reasons why that happens. Childcare, right? Many of our women are facing issues with childcare, and this is a big commitment job. So, going into the higher ranks means higher responsibility, like the other chiefs had said. you know, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sacrifice, and you have to be able to do that. So we look to mentor the women coming up and work through some of the strategies that worked for us, you know, as we were coming up through the ranks. But we do have specific women's related groups within the fire department that does the outreach. And particularly on the fire side, there is a big mentoring, you know, group for women. Those women stick together. They go to all each other's promotions. They go to all each other's ceremonies, and they really look to elevate each other. And that's a great thing. And I think we have to accept the fact that it's not just women that are going to bring you up in the ranks. Generally, it's the men we look for, because it's the men that really have to be brave and make the decision to open the door for the women coming behind them. So, you know, I don't want us to disregard the men in our careers who have been incredible mentors and incredible allies, and have, you know, been progressive enough to step back and say, let's give this woman a try, even though there's never been another woman in this position. So, you know, I want you to not limit your resources. Look to the men and look to the women to help you find your way.
There was one other question, but I believe, Chief Bonsignor, you answered it. The question was from Tina, and it says, why do you think more women do not get promoted to the rank of chief? Does anyone want to add a little something to that?
I think Lil hit on some of it of what we were talking about, of there's other poles in your life. I think just like any other CEO position, they're genuinely male or female. There are people that really don't want this job, right? They don't want the commitment. They don't want the public facing. When you're the head of an organization, you know, you carry the weight of it. You are the face of it. You are on 24/7. You make decisions about going to dinner with your spouse in a public place, understanding that somebody is going to recognize you as a leader in your community. Every decision you make, personal or professional, affects your professional life. I think there's genuinely just a lot of people that don't want the position. When we talk about females moving up in the industry, I think a lot of it's the same thing. I honestly don't feel like there is a big, you know, red X of no women in this position. Maybe, you know, and again, my fire service experience is 14 years. So I'm speaking from a very narrow, so I don't want to discount what it probably was before, of really there was the red X. But I think there are a variety of reasons, and a lot of them go back to lifestyle. I'm completely open to hearing, you know, more from somebody with more time in the industry, though.
I do think that also you have to push past your vulnerabilities and your fears, right? There are lots of women who just don't believe they have it in them to hold these positions. And,
Yeah.
you know, without them pushing past that feeling, they will never make it to the other side. So I think the answer is you absolutely can do this. You absolutely have what it takes. You are no different or you know, less qualified than the men in this industry. It's just a matter of finding the courage to say, yes, I belong, and yes, I have something to say. I mean, women are leaders by nature, I think, right? I mean, we're always telling everybody what to do, aren't we?
Yeah, I can vouch for that. As the only
Read the
male
next
in that
question,
family.
John. We're ready.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, bring it. All right. I am suggesting a book for some of the questions. Dr. Amy Cuddy has done a phenomenal job in talking about presence and getting over your fears and acting as if to bolster yourself in certain positions. It's an excellent book. I recommend that. There's Amy Webster. I'm lucky to be have very supportive mentors and leaders in my fire department who have supported me and believe in me. What is the best way to give back to leaders within your fire service, those who have made a special effort to support you?
Honestly, for me, I don't know, just seeing someone succeed with it takes a lot of their own effort and determination and drive. But honestly, for me, seeing someone else succeed that maybe I even had a little bit of an impact on is tenfold better than anything else.
I agree.
I would say pay it forward.
Right.
Pay it forward, right? Give it to somebody
Right.
else. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's nothing more. I'm so proud when I go to their promotional ceremonies after I've seen them step forward. I make an effort to get there, but Lil is right and Trisha's right. Pay it forward. Grab somebody behind you and give them that lift up. Whatever it is that they need, go find them and help them. We have to get past this idea that we're not good enough to do it, because we are. We're doing it. We've been doing it for centuries. It's just a different uniform, different outfit we wear every day. We're managers, we're leaders, we're mentors. We have all the qualifications. So just go out there and do it. Put yourself out there, make yourself vulnerable. You'd be surprised at how many people would really welcome that fresh aspect of somebody. Do we as leaders get frightened? Absolutely. There's days you go to work and you don't know what's going to happen. And they look to you for that. So when you get that opportunity as a mentor to see someone succeed, put that seed in their mind to go back and reach for somebody else. That's what the gift would be for me. Grab someone else and bring them with you.
I would say there is no rank in the department that it is not an absolute must. But if you are an officer or a chief, it's one of the things that I'm asking when I see my company officers and my chiefs. Who are you mentoring? If you can't rattle off 3 names, you are not doing your job. Bottom line, it is not an option. It is a must. You must do mentoring. You learn so much about yourself at the same time.
I've said it better. I was trying to use 515 as a cutoff, so it's 509. This is what we call a big rock in our industry. This is a comment and question from Cassidy. Besides clothing and PPE that fits, also station facilities that accommodate women, i.e. bathrooms with doors on them, being able to lock a door when you take a shower. Things like that are still, sadly and shockingly, still not provided for women in the fire service. Now, most of you, I know your departments, that's not an issue. I remember years ago, there was an issue in Chicago and in New York, but I'm talking that was the late 80s and early 90s. So Cassidy, I don't know what department that you're with, but that is something for your own safety and security, or if you're talking about another department, I can tell you as a chief officer, that's something that should be brought to not only the leadership of your department, but city leaders and through your union. Because that goes directly to health and safety. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Here in Chicago, we had some issues a while back. Those are being addressed. We have some firehouses that are 100 years old. So the modifications to those buildings takes a little finagling, and its finances are the other part of it. Retrofitting a building is very expensive, but we're working on it. And where we need to make accommodations, certainly we will do that. We need to know about it. I think that if you just go to the company officer and ask them, hey, you mind if I put a lock on the bathroom door? They're not going to tell you no. I'm not sure what department that is that this young lady is speaking from, but I would think across the country, we've made those strides to help create a better environment in the fire stations that's a little bit more inclusive and welcoming, but also offers that level of privacy that everybody needs,
Thank you. I'm going to go to another question in the Q&A. How do you think the TV series are depicting women in the fire service? It's great to see more female firefighters on TV, but it's coming with a price. Your thoughts? We can see you all on TV, by the way.
Yeah.
This would be a show unto itself, but go ahead.
Chicago Fire is not anything like what the Chicago Fire Department is. We don't wear clothes like that. We don't live like that. We don't work like that. I think it brings a level of exposure to younger women to explore it. I would personally rather see more fire explorer programs. fire academies for civilian to come in and have an opportunity to be at the fire academy or fire camps, Camp Ignite the Spirit. I think the TV shows do a great disservice to some extent. It's unrealistic, but then when you get on the scene of a real emergency, people really believe that how it happens on TV. It's like NCIS. Everybody becomes a forensic scientist in a matter of one season. You can't. I think it does a lot of. I think it does more harm than good, actually. They're great folks. The ones that we work with at Chicago Fire, they are constantly participating in our fundraising and everything. They're very respectful. They have a great deal of admiration for us. And we work in those firehouses. When they come and shoot at one of our firehouses, it's a really cool thing, but it's not reality based. And I think that's a problem.
Thank you for that. There's one last question in the queue I'd like to get to. Celebrating and promoting women in the fire service, there are often a lot of negative comments regarding the unnecessary celebration of women joining the fire service, especially in fire halls that have never had female firefighters or female firefighters in a leadership position. Your thoughts?
Well, I will say, one of the comments that one of my mentors taught me, which was actually my husband, and however you categorize the word love, you never withhold love. You never withhold celebratory, just because that hierarchy of what you think is too much or enough is something that one may disagree or agree with. That is a form of love. And to me, our own people can beat down their own members enough. And we know how the ranks of the structure in a firehouse can work sometimes, and we can do our own damage on our own. So for me, if you're focused on celebrating in general, to me, that's a form of love, and I wouldn't want to withhold that. If the focus is, well, it's only because it's women and the men don't do that, I think, one, that's a pretty big general comment. And two, again, it's celebrating hard work. So it's probably a difference of opinion, but mine comes down to showing admiration and showing gratitude for people working hard to get a position is a form of love. And we try to not withhold that. Everybody deserves that feeling.
Thank you so much. I was going to ask the panel to have closing words, but I'd like to pose it this way. If you had to leave the fire service today, like today, this was your last hour, what would you hope to leave it, and what would they say about you? I need short answers.
I hope they would say, she was fair and she was a good steward of our profession and she got things done.
Amy?
I would hope that they would say that that I cared about the people in the organization and the community.
Deb?
I would hope they say that I left it better than I found it. That's a big saying in our department, but also that I'm fair and honest and kept my integrity. I gave everybody a fair shot. That's really.
Tricia?
I would think they would say she left it better than she found it, but she certainly held us accountable while she was doing it.
Super. That's going to conclude our panel. I want to say on behalf of myself, the first thing when I was asked to be a part of the panel where we're going to be in Indianapolis, I saw some of the names and I said, this is great. We're going to get there and mix it up. When they asked me to be moderator, I'm being like, well, this is either the highest honor or the beginning of a cruel joke. That's what I thought. But after spending this afternoon with you phenomenal women in fire, I'm inspired. I know that I need to do more. And I thought I was doing enough. Obviously, I'm not doing enough. And I hope that this message gets out to every chief officer, every mentor, both women and men, that we can all do a little bit more to make this better. And I appreciate your commitment, your sacrifice. I even want to thank your families for sharing you with us. I'm going to turn it back over to Amy Hanifan, for your closing words, Madam President.
Yes, thank you. Thank you again to all of our panelists that joined. This has been a great experience, and certainly I know we had a lot of participants engaged. So thank you to those that attended, and we look forward to more opportunities to put some webinars out. Probably in August, we'll have something more. So have a great afternoon. I hope that everyone stays safe and stay in touch.
All right.
Thank you all. Be safe.
Be well.
Thank you.
Be well. Thanks, guys.
Bye.